Hey guys, what's up? Something I wanted to talk about for a while. There's this weird attitude that I've run into a lot online and specifically on this channel, though I don't really think it's anything special about this channel. And it's this idea that you need to always be correct or you're just an idiot. And I know some of that, especially when it comes to drive-by shitposting commenters on this channel, some of it is just trying to be antagonizing, just trying to leave a mean comment and then move on with their ill-spirited day. Yeah. I think there are some people, though, who kind of misrepresent how to be successful and what it takes to be successful. In preparing for this video, I went and looked up the statistic of NBA players, that's basketball players in the US, and how often they actually make shots. And it turns out that NBA professional players who get paid millions of dollars a year and have a great incentive to be good at sinking shots only make 30 to 60% of the shots that they take, depending on where they take them on the court. And so, we don't expect NBA players to make every bet correct. And yet we have this weird idea that people like me or even Rudy should have unbroken streaks of success on every bet that we make. And there's something about investing where if you use time to your advantage, you become more successful. And let's take an example. Let's say that you want to just flip real estate. You get hit in the head really hard and you think, I'm going to go flip real estate on short time scales. Well, there's considerable selling fees on real estate. It's typically 3% to the buyer agent, 3% to the selling agent, so 6% of the house price overall when you sell the house, and typically in the US the seller pays those fees. And so if you think that you're going to buy a house and then you're just going to flip it in a few months, well, you need at least 6% appreciation in the house in the time that you've held it for you to break even. And that doesn't even cover other costs like the title fees and, searching the titles and all those other things, title insurance, and, that whole laundry list of fees that's tacked onto the closing statement when you buy and sell a house. But if you buy the same property and you plan to, say, live there or have a relative live there or something like that, or rent it out for several years, and then you plan to sell it after that, it's really easy to make money off the property then because the property has had time to appreciate more. And so it's easier to be correct when you put time on your side. And that's why I often say on this channel that you don't have to be smart, you don't have to be good, you just have to be patient. Because again and again and again, we see that most TCG investments do really well over the long term. Some people get really confused, and let's say that they've been suckered in by Reddit and they've started specking on garbage modern cards. They've bought 100 copies of Mudhole and they hold on to them for 2 weeks, and then they realize they would have to pay money to get rid of them. Well, yeah, they're going to go away from that with a bad attitude, and they're going to think that you have to be 100% correct 100% of the time in order to make money in this hobby, and you don't. At this point, after this kind of weak bull market that we've been in for the last 6 months has brought Magic prices up, there are very, very few sealed boxes anymore that I've bought in the whole history of Final Trade. They're still underwater. Only a few. There's probably Baldur's Gate collectors because I bought those right after release at like 230 or something like that, and they're back up to what, like 180 right now, somewhere around there. And probably Double Masters 2022 collectors because I went heavy on the collector boxes and I bought them, I think, at 250 or 260 at release. And right now they're 205, 210, 215. But besides that, scores and scores of different types of boxes. They've almost all come back above water. Some of them, like some of the Pokemon boxes, are up 100%, 200%, more than 200% since I bought them. And so you didn't need to be smart. You didn't need to make the exact right choice all the time. You didn't need to have that pressure. You simply needed to be well capitalized enough to wait out the market, and then you'll be profitable. And I think there are a lot of people, or maybe not a lot, but at least some, who don't quite understand that distinction. And they have this idea that if somebody is ever wrong, well, then they're just an idiot. You can't trust anything they say. And it's weird because I'll see people even take this attitude to Rudy. And it's like, How can you take a guy who literally went from turning wrenches and waiting tables to conservatively 30 to 50 million dollar net worth and say that he's stupid? It's really weird. You know, Rudy gives some numbers once in a while, and you have to make some reasonable um, inferences from the numbers that he gives. But I believe at the beginning of last year, he stated in a video how much money he spent on postage the previous year because he had just done his taxes. And, you know, I took that number and I kind of backed it out. I said, well, you know, what you pay to ship a case of magic cards. So you'd say approximately he shipped this many, just assuming that his business was all magic cards, that he shipped this many cases of magic cards over that previous year, and that each case was, you know, somewhere around $580, something like that. You know, just make some real conservative adjustments, multiply a couple numbers together. And what I came out with, I don't remember the exact numbers now, but it was something like 15 to 20 million dollars of sales that he had done during the year, and then just making some real reasonable multiples on top of that, arriving to a somewhere 30 to 50 million dollar net value for the guy. And yet people will sit and say, you know, on the instance that he makes some call disastrously wrong, which he does from time to time, people will say, well, he's stupid and you can't trust him. And so I look at this from the experienced investor standpoint, where, you know, I've been in the stock market for 20 years now. I've done very well in it, and I've done well in it to the point where now I'm contemplating ending a professional engineering career to open a card store. So I've done pretty well. And I see that I've made a lot of mistakes. I've made a lot of wrong bets, but overall, I've made more correct bets than wrong ones. And I've allowed time to fix a lot of those incorrect bets. And yeah, we would like if we could all be 100% successful, but you know, you need to think about how this may be influencing your thinking. And if it's preventing you from taking reasonable risks that maybe you should take, you need to think about it in that standpoint. You need to think about it from the standpoint of who you take advice from. Because even though people will be wrong, every investor will be wrong from time to time, there are still some that are worthwhile to get advice from. And you need to not let it paralyze you into not making investment decisions and business decisions because you fear you might be wrong. I've made a lot of bad business decisions, bad investment decisions with Final Trade. I've tried products that haven't worked. I've bought things that have been underwater for serious lengths of time. You know, I've made mistakes, but I've learned from them. And so you need to learn that everyone, even those professional basketball players, are going to make mistakes in their business. And what separates the successful people from the unsuccessful ones is what you do after you've realized you've made the mistake. Do you sit on it, hold tight, wait for it to come back up? Do you cut your losses? Sometimes it is reasonable to cut your losses on a bad investment. Do you build a business with the eye towards the ultimate long term, where you can stand the test of time, you can wait out the market and not be crunched for capital, and you can just wait? Well, that's what I've done with Final Trade. Every decision I've made with Final Trade for the last 3 years has been with the eye on the ultra long term towards building a business where I'm not constantly crunched for capital, where I'm not constantly having to sell things at a loss in order to stay in business. And right now it's working really, really well. So be careful about who you listen to. Be careful about what kind of standards for success and accuracy you require, because they may be way too high. And also understand there are some people who are just going to attempt to mercilessly shitpost you nonetheless about every minor thing you get wrong. And don't worry about it. Do your own thing. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.